it's as you know, it's a copycat of SB 1120 that seeks to kill single family zoning. It upzones all single family streets. It's not about allowing duplexes. It allows 4 or 6 or 8 units of density where one home is now. By the way, gated communities are not protected, folks, whoever thinks that. This is in gated communities, this is everywhere. The second thing is that the 4-unit and the 6-unit projects are going to be allowed by right. There will be no input from the community or city to have 4-unit or 6-unit projects where one house is now. The next, we have 1, 1, 1, and 1. The third number 1, 8-unit projects, there is some leeway for cities to say no in a case-by-case basis to the 8-unit projects. That's how our team of volunteer lawyers have read this. There might be disagreement on this, but this is what we think that the bill says. The fourth issue, SB 9, is a gift to market rate rental giants to overrun homeowner areas. We've discussed that. It's a dog whistle to investors to come in, and that's why last year, Adrin Nazarian, who's an assembly member in the Valley, his name's Adrin Nazarian, he's the one who said, hey, we've already got 10,000 houses in the San Fernando Valley not owned by homeowners, but by large organizations. And that's why he voted against 1120. And then finally, SB 9 ends public hearings for multiple homes being allowed on single family lots in the coastal zone. It's a major attack on the coastal zone protections in California. Next slide, please. This will all be on our website. So 1120 was sold in 2020 as a duplex bill. That was to get the state assembly's approval. It had already shot through the Senate without, just on a consent, and was said to be not controversial. Don't worry about it. Go ahead and let it go, which wasn't true, but that was a great spin. It got to the assembly and they almost approved it. Almost approved it. Just a few minutes more time and they would have approved it as law. So now it's back. Here are the scenarios. Again, we're going to kind of pound them into your head. Scenario 1 allows 4 units where one home is now by right. The builder can construct 2 freestanding houses plus 1 ADU, which is some people call a granny flat, and 1 JDU, that's a junior granny flat, without splitting the lot. So they can do all of this 4 units without splitting the lot. That's what can happen in your neighborhood. Scenario 2 is where SB 9 results in 6 units where one home is now. So by right, the builder splits the lot into 2 lots. Now that's gonna just be automatic home destruction in most cases because houses are right in the middle of their lots or close to the middle of their lots. So they split the lot into 2 exactly the same size, and they can erect on each lot 1 freestanding house. I can't read the rest of this because the thing is not even. 1 freestanding house, 1 ADU, and 1 JDU. I don't know how people pronounce that. That's 6 units. 6 units allowed where one house is now. The final scenario is the 8-unit scenario. By right, a builder can split the lot in 2 and build 2 houses on each lot. That's already allowed. Now you try to add, if you're a builder, you want to add 1 ADU and 1 JDU to both lots. That's where the city can step in if they want to and say, no, we only want you to do the 4. So right now we believe that 8 units is allowed by a city, but it's not automatic. But all the other stuff, all the other bad news is true. Next slide, Rick. Rick?
I'm coming, hang on.
Next slide. So this next slide, we had the mayor of Redondo Beach on for a while, Bill Brand, a lot of you know him. That's not it. There it is. Okay, so this is what happened in Redondo Beach, what this a neighborhood called the Tall and Skinnies. There was a unique part of Redondo Beach where they did not update or protect, I guess you could say, their zoning. And this is what was allowed once developers realized what they could do. And these actually have more grass and more yards than would happen under SB 1120. This is 4plexes, and they do have garages. Under the new proposal, SB 9, and under 1120, no garages are required. Just one parking place somehow for the unit. So no garages, and by the way, no yards. There will be a 4-foot setback. So in this picture, you can see these tiny little backyards with trees in them. That is not going to happen. We're going to have 4 feet between buildings, 4-foot setback, wiping out, paved over, worse than this photograph. Okay, Rick, next one. Okay, so here's where the media got it wrong. And this is something we're asking people to get onto. Call your newspaper and tell them they had it wrong last time, and get a hold of the reporter and send them the information. They really just don't know. They don't understand the bill. It's really hard to understand it. So we had it's duplex, 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 all of the major media. And that's why nobody really was that up in arms about it on the media side of things, because ADUs are already allowed, and that's essentially a duplex. So what's the problem? The problem is now you double everything up with the ADUs and the duplexes and standalone single family, and it becomes a very dense neighborhood. Next, Rick, next slide. Okay, the other copycat bill from 2020 is SB 10 by Scott Wiener. And that's really a big problem. It undoes our 100-year-old right to the voter initiative. It does it in this way. It lets any municipality, by that we mean a city council or a county board of supervisors, nullify a citizen-initiated, voter-approved law that protects shorelines, hills, urban boundaries, open space, or any other voter-protected land that is wanted by developers. So let's say you have a height limit that was approved by voters via citizen initiative. The new city council can undo that. They can undo open space. If you have an urban boundary like the group SOAR in Ventura County, they can go after that. Livable California has found at least 40 open spaces now protected in California that could be overturned. We have about 25 of them listed today on our website. If you go visit livablecalifornia.org, you'll see that we've begun to make a list of the places that city councils could go after if you get a flip on your city council. The second part of this slide is in red. It says equally bad, SB 10 lets city councils approve 10-unit market rate apartments building almost everywhere. That's our saying, almost everywhere. Scott Wiener calls this local control. They will overrun their general plan, any plan that's on the books. The city council can overrun it to put in these 10-unit market rate apartment buildings. And this goes back quite a ways because Scott Wiener's been trying to get this 10-unit market rate easy approval thing into a number of laws. It was right at the core and almost hidden in a way in SB 50 to allow 10-unit market rate apartments almost everywhere. So this one it targets the following 3. If you look at the second bullet item underneath that red headline, don't be fooled by Wiener's language that he's targeting property that's urban infill, jobs rich, or transit rich. We've taken a look at urban infill, which is a really sloppy term, and a city council can call something urban infill if they decide that it's underutilized. So imagine the things that some city councils could decide are underutilized. They call them urban infill, and they allow the 10-unit luxury apartment, no affordable units at all. So just adding to the crush of too many market rate housing. Jobs rich is going to be decided by the state of California. They're going to decide if your neighborhood is jobs rich or not. We've seen the formula. It's completely out of this world, and it's going to be very, very broad. Transit rich will also be broad, but a lot of us know a lot more about the transit rich areas. That's why we're calculating that bottom line there, that SB 10 really means that these 10-unit non-affordable luxury buildings can be built almost everywhere. Next slide, Rick. So we're going to try to get somebody, a leader from Vancouver, to be one of our speakers. Vancouver is North America's most expensive city. It's rated by a global real estate bubble index as the 6th most concerning housing bubble risk in the world. The person we might try to get is Patrick Condon, professor at University of British Columbia School of Architecture, a landscape architect, an author, and a former city planner. He spent years backing the process of widespread upzoning in Vancouver. They have a ton of new zoning now that allows all kinds of neighborhoods to be redone and destroyed and overdone. And the prices have simply gone up. So Condon said in a podcast about 3 weeks ago, we've incrementally quadrupled the density of Vancouver, but we haven't seen any decrease in the per square foot costs. The evidence is indisputable. We can conclude there's a problem beyond restrictive zoning. And then later in the podcast, he says, no amount of opening the zoning or allowing for development will cause prices to go down. We've seen no evidence of that at all. It's not the NIMBYs that are the problem. It's the global increase in land value in urban areas that's the problem. So we're very interested in this guy, Patrick Condon, because he's been on both sides. He's incredibly smart, and he's about maybe 5 to 10 years ahead of us in Vancouver, which has moved much more quickly to adopt all of these concepts and the YIMBY approach. And so there's sort of a giant petri dish for us to look at. Next slide, Rick. Okay, this is from Embarcadero Institute. If you haven't been to their site yet, as far as we know, they're the only think tank in California that's actually trying to explain what's going on instead of just promoting construction like Turner Center. Turner Center is located on the Berkeley campus, but it's not actually a Berkeley think tank. It kind of rides on that, but a lot of legislators listen to the Turner people and they're wrong so often. It's incredible. So we look to Embarcadero Institute often, and we are underbuilding affordable housing. See that little teeny tiny square that says very low and low income, and it's turquoise. That's how much very low and low income housing we've built, that little tiny turquoise square. And the big lime square or surrounding it is how much we were supposed to build, but we couldn't do it because the state ended its funding for affordable housing in 2011, and they never put the money back. So what's happening instead, because the state won't fund affordable housing and they're just going crazy over market rate, is that giant aqua tower. That's how much market rate we've built, and the lime tower behind it is how much was needed. So we're way overbuilt on market rate on affordable housing, and almost all of the bills being proposed pursue that same ideal. Next slide, please, Rick. So this is another from Embarcadero Institute. Here's where the defunding happened. Governor Jerry Brown defunded affordable housing right after to survive the crash. The state was broke, and so they ended their really major funding for affordable housing that was through the redevelopment agencies. Now, the redevelopment agencies were not popular. They were kind of a mess in Los Angeles, but they did build a lot of affordable units. So you'll see on the right, the lime color, that's where it dropped off the cliff, the funding. There's a slight bump in 2019. The voters approved something on the ballot to put some money into affordable housing, but the state itself is holding way back. They're not putting money into it, and they're really doing a terrible job. And then they're, of course, blaming the cities for not having affordable housing. So the media hasn't really written this story yet, but it's kind of a strange story about what's really happening from the state level, and then the cities and communities getting blamed. Final maybe slide here, Rick. Okay, so final thoughts. Yeah, SB 9 and SB 10 destroy California communities to bring more expensive housing that we don't need. Wiener and his allies are fighting last year's war. This is last year's war. A lot has changed. We have pre-COVID density bills all coming back that don't address what's happening now. There isn't a single affordable unit proposed in either of the two bills. Not one affordable unit will be built. And then a few little other things that we think are really bad about SB 9. And then it's a major hit on the environment. SB 9 ends the public hearings to allow density in the coastal zones on single family lots. That's a really bad idea. Both of them wipe out our defensible space in the fire and burn areas by crowding all these houses together with 4 feet. It's just really a terrible idea. Both create destruction of the urban tree canopy on a major scale. And SB 10, of course, is a direct attack on open space in urban areas because it lets city councils override what voters are protecting. So we're going to have that on the site. We wanted to show it to you guys real quick, and then maybe some final thoughts from anybody who has their hands up. Thanks, Rick.